Hi, everyone. So we're in, as we mentioned, in the 5th season of the How to Do It video series, and we've been talking about value adding and the hugely important process of making yourself a little more profitable on the farm, so you don't necessarily have to have that off-farm job that so many have. One of the trends currently has been people trying to move away a little bit. It's not been good news for the wine industry, but people moving away from alcohol. And what we're going to teach you, with Claudia's much valued help, is how to make a drink called a shrub. Yes, that's the green leafy thing in the garden, but it's also a wonderfully powerful health drink that tastes vaguely alcoholic. It's got the fermented edge that really can serve as a substitute. We're going to taste some a little later, as a substitute for your glass of wine with a meal, but with many extra benefits. So what's it made of and what's it about? 3 components, all of which, of course, come from Nutrition Farms in this instance. Apple cider vinegar, honey, so we've got our Nutrition Farms honey here, and some mulberries in this case. You can use a whole variety of fruit, and we'll talk about different ones that we've produced previously, and we'll taste them a little later. So we take the mulberries, and Claudia will explain how it works. So you've got the effect of fermenting the fruit, which of course pulls out all of those antioxidants, which mulberries have got very high levels of anthocyanins and some other compounds. We've got the benefits, all those enzymes and wonderful benefits of honey, and we've got the multiple benefits of apple cider vinegar, and they synergize beautifully together to produce a concentrated cordial, cordial-like substance. Of course, it's not your sugary cordial. They're used in a small amount of. You add in a sparkling mineral water, and it's delicious. And it's a really good substitute for alcohol if that's what you're seeking. Now, if you're not seeking that, you could add a little bit of vodka to it and magnify that effect as an alternative. But I'll hand over to Claudia now, and she'll explain how you go about making your own shrub, because it really is something worth trying. You would be really knocked out with the flavour potential.
Hello. What I've done is, because we have got really wonderful honey, it likes to settle and set. So I pre-warm the honey. I don't make it hot. So I just put it in a pot and warm it up a little bit just so it gets liquid. And then really, it's really simple. It's 1, 1, 1. So it's 1 kilo of honey, 1 liter of vinegar, and 1 kilo of fruit, whichever one that you would like to have. Some things lend themselves better than others. Berry ones are always really, really beautiful. And because I know a little bit about it, I will put the liquid in first, which is just 1 liter of Nutrition Farms apple cider vinegar. Beautiful, powerful. It's very, very beautiful. If you compare that to macro can go like, it's not even, doesn't even count, because like literally it's like amazing. This stuff is. Then we have, I'll zero that, tear it off to 0. So we got 1 liter there. We'll put 1 kilo of honey.
Beautiful stuff.
Also Nutrition Farms honey from the Sunshine Coast. It is amazing. It's all nature and pure nature up there. And the bees are aggressive, aren't they?
Well, they can be if you're mowing too close to them, that's for sure. That's 3 jars, is it?
No, it's actually, if I were to clean that out really nicely, like a good girl should. I come from a father that never ever wasted anything ever. And it's sort of stuck by me. So instead of opening another jar of honey, we are going to make this work as a kilo of honey. And, you know, these, like, being a chef, everything is not 100%, has to be the grams, you know. So this is close enough to a kilo of honey. So I mix that together with the vinegar. Why do I do that? Because I like to have a even distribution, to have it like if I were to put the honey onto the berries and then the vinegar, it's just harder to mix together. So this makes it a lot more easy. It's so simple. This is awesome, by the way. Like everybody can make this. You can make it with sugar, but we've got the honey, so we will use the honey. Pop that over here. And then we mix that together. And then this is pretty much it. So the recipe, what has to happen with it now is once a day, you need to stir it for 1 week. Once a day,
do you put a lid on it or not?
Pardon?
Do you put a lid on it or not?
Yeah, we put a lid on it.
Yeah.
And
once a day, you take the lid off.
Once a day, I take the lid off and stir it, and that is for 7 days. And then you've got to leave it for 7 days, and then you can start using it. Now, I've made a lot of different shrubs, and I have never, ever strained it after 1 week. I would probably say, like after 1 week of sitting, you can have a little taste, but it's much better after a month. And yeah, so then as the ingredients, as we've said, we've got here, because I like to play around, and Graham gives me the opportunity and free rein to do these things. So we've got a feijoa one here because we had some feijoas. And then we've got a persimmon and lemon myrtle one here. But we can make it with apple and ginger. Like there's no the mixed fruits are fine.
Even rosella, we made some rosella, grew some rosellas last year, so we can even do it with them.
We made some rosella ones. So that is how simple it is. And honestly, when you have that, I usually probably do 1/10 of whatever amount that we're making, whatever size it is. It's about 1/10, but it all depends how strong you would like to have it. But it replaces literally alcohol. It is such a good drink, and you can drink it forever and not be pulled up by the cops on the road, So it's like really, really wonderful.
I'll go and get some sparkling mineral water and we'll try that. We'll be back in a minute.
So we could do, make it with strawberry, mixed berry. Of course, if we're going to make these sorts of things, we like to be as natural about it as possible. If all our ingredients are chemical free, they may not be organic certified, but they're chemical free 100%. And but even when people don't care so much about that, if you don't have honey, but you want to try this thing, you get some vinegar, get the sugar, just do sugar. Sugar is really, it's very interesting because the honey is quite flavorsome in itself. So if you have a delicate fruit that is very delicate in flavor, you can actually take the flavor away from the fruit, and it takes away from the actual fruit that you've used. It's actually interesting, but because we like to do the honey thing, because Graham grows the honey, so we do that. Yes, so that is the shrub. And then I'm just going to make this a little table. We're going to put a little bit of ice. Actually, shrub first. So what would be 1/10 of that? Give it a good old shake. Now this was interesting because I put that in the Thermomix and I kind of mushed it up a bit much. Then it was very difficult to strain out. Yeah, so when the shrub is finished, basically I just strain it out with like a normal strainer into another vessel, and then into a clean 1 liter bottle. And this has just been sitting on the shelf. That's been sitting
almost a year and a half.
Yeah, a year and a half. And I mean, it might go a little bit discolored. Just leave a bit for ice. It might go a little bit off color, but it still stays exactly the same. No preservative, just nature doing its thing.
Of course, you've got the acetobacter, the fermenting organisms in the apple cider vinegar. They're going to pull out all the goodies, and then of course you've got the wonderful effect of honey and the health benefits. Thank you.
Delicious. Cheers. Cheers.
That's nice. Want to try some, Adam? Can I have a taste?
Well, you might want a little bit more, but you might like a bit more in there.
No, it's all good. Yep. Yep.
Cheers. That's nice. See the nice fermented flavour?
Delicious.
Yeah.
And complex.
Yeah, it's
Lovely.
really good.
Okay, so the one thing that might be a good opportunity while Claudia's here is I mentioned the value adding of Yacon with this wonderful thing called Yacon syrup. We're the only Australian producers of this. And it came about through Claudia. I mentioned that it was very popular in Peru and elsewhere, and what a wonderful thing it would have to give people who didn't have good results with sugar, to give them a healthy alternative. And I came home and Claudia said, "Look what I've made."
But we went
she'd made the
to a
first one.
farm where they made it.
Oh, she tasted it. Yes. Sorry, we're in Tasmania. That's right. I forgot about that. And you tasted it, and then you said, "I'm going to make this stuff." And so we've now turned into quite major producers of Yacon syrup. And perhaps you can tell about how it's done.
So, of course, in one of the previous movies that you have seen that Graham and I have made, we were actually out in the Yacon patch, and we basically harvest the Yacon. Then we've got a special washer now. It's like a drum, and it's got water and pressure, and we wash them. Then they get looked over to make sure that they are all good and not rotten, and all the bad bits get cut off. Then we juice them. So we juice them and we put them through a sieve and also cheesecloth. And then it gets put into a big boiler, and it gets basically simmered up, but not boiling. So it simmers up, and when it simmers up, it gets a lot of froth on it. So I've got a skimmer, and I skim the froth off, and I skim the froth off. So when we first start out with this, it's very intense for the first few hours until it stops getting all frothed up. And then basically it depends on how we will cook it, but in our boiler, we've got it, I will have it up to 7, so full, until it just comes up, and then turn it back. And as it reduces, it will get turned down, and I keep the edges clean, because what I've found, if I don't do that, the edges dry off and then it falls into the syrup, and I don't like it very much at all. And basically, when you have 10 liters, say you have 10 liters of juice, you should at the end get about a liter of Yacon syrup. And when I tell people, they go, "Oh, it's too much." But I think it's just when we grow this stuff, and it is such a beautiful product, it's well worth it, And so the thing is, people don't have big boilers. So if you have a pot, whatever pot that is, and you boil it, if you have some sort of gas stove or something like that, that will probably be too hot. So as it reduces down, you have to reduce down the heat. And one way of doing that is to put an actual barbecue, like put a little barbecue plate on your stove, and that diffuses the extreme heat that comes through the pot. Have a big, nice, open, wide pot, so there's an open area that the water the fluid can what do you call it? Dissipate. Thank you.
It's interesting with our trial. Of course, it's all done in the commercial kitchen now. But initially, when Claudia was experimenting, we had a big pot, and we had it on our stove. The stove's got a stove top. This is our fire. Our whatever they called those things. What's it called?
Slow combustion heater.
Slow combustion heater. That's the word. And we had it simmering away nicely on that with that little plate underneath, so it didn't overheat. And then we went out for dinner, and we came back and we gave it a stir, and we said, "What are those lumps?" And it was little tiny bats had actually chased it. I don't know how they drowned it.
One bat.
I thought it was two. I thought it was two.
Oh, whatever. It doesn't matter.
2 bats were in there. So of course we had to throw it all out, and that was a lesson that maybe you need something over the top for your simmering.
So when we do it in the big boiler, because it is in there for so long, I have made I've bought a stainless steel fly screen, and that sits over the top so nothing can fall into it, because of course we can't put the lid on, because otherwise you have no dissipation. So yes, and then all I do basically when it's finished, I pour it out. By then the actual syrup has gone, it's almost lukewarm. So then it's not preserved. So this is a big problem when you make a big lot of stuff. So what I do is I tip it, I sieve it through another sieve it through, make sure everything is out and it's really clean and really smooth, put it in a pot and bring it back up to 80 degrees. And then we also use the what's it called, the sugar measurement thing?
Oh, the Brix meter.
Yeah, so we have a Brix meter. So Graham bought me one that goes up to 100 Brix. And I bring it, so the regulation is it's supposed to be 72 Brix. But what I found out is when talking this in a professional way, when we put 72 Brix Yacon syrup in the bottle and then we put the lid on, a little bit of condensation happens and the Brix come down. So I like going to 80, which is really generous because you're getting a super duper quality product. And then so it's at 80 degrees, 80 Brix, and then I bottle it and I just have my bottles lined up. And I have a really clean stainless steel jug, and that just gets bottled one by one by one. And put the lid on, put it upside down, and that's it. And there's no preservative. It's pure love, this. Yeah, that's it.
The thing for the average home gardener is to recognise the potential of this plant in your garden, because you don't grow from the tuber, you grow from a little knobbly thing called a rhizome. And once you put your first plant in and had your first harvest, which is you let the plant die off in June, whether or not you have frosts, it dies off naturally, and you wait for about 10 days after it's died off for it to pump all of its sugars down into those roots, and that's when the sweetness comes in. People often bandicoot before it's ready, and they say, oh, it's not very sweet, and it's not, because it puts those sugars in at the end of the season. But then you leave it in the soil, and the soil becomes your root cellar in effect, and you've got right through to spring, from June until September, when it'll take off again, and you harvest as you need it. So once you've got it in the garden, you've got 10, 15, 20 plants, you've got Yacons, this wonderfully healthful thing, all season. It's available. You just take them as you need them, and then in springtime you break them up, and you take all the reed, and one plant becomes 10 plants, and you can be a commercial Yacon producer in a couple of years.
But the other thing is, I find like we've sold the Yacon rhizomes and the Yacon at the markets for a long time now, like years. And I say to the people, you can leave it in the ground, but when spring comes, and you have to get them out, because we've trialed it to leave a batch in, and they just don't do very well.
They don't. If you just leave them and let them regrow, which a lot of people do, it's nowhere near as good as breaking them up and starting a new plant. That's what gives you the best yield and the best quality.
Yeah, and so if you have spare, like if you got too many Yacons, that is when we make the syrup. And nothing gets wasted, and that's what this is all about.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks, buddy.